much, and good afternoon. And first of all, let me thank the Institute of National Policy Research, INPR, for giving me this opportunity to meet some of the best and the brightest students, young ladies and gentlemen in Taiwan. And if I remember correctly, just yesterday, Dr. Tian, in his welcoming remarks, he specifically talked about you guys, the future voice of Taiwan, the future face of Taiwan, and the future pride of Taiwan. As a community, as a society, as a democracy, and as a great country. So this afternoon, I have this pleasure of sharing some of my personal observations and the thoughts about the upcoming U.S. presidential elections. And I don't believe it's a coincidence that today, 4th of July, marks the Independence Day of the United States. 248 years, the United States. And of course, so far, they have produced 46 presidents in its almost 250 years history. But this year, this particular year, the election seems to be one of the most, if the most, precarious, curious, and bizarre election. So let's see how this election is about, and equally important, what it means to the American people, what it means to the world, and what it means for Taiwan. And exactly 4 months from now, November 5th, will be the election day. Today is the 4th of July. And in U.S. presidential elections, it's not about popular votes. It's about electoral votes. So you have 50 states, and based on their population, each state will allocate electoral votes. So you have in total 538 votes from 50 states. And California, because it is the biggest state, so California got 54 electoral votes. And for some small states like Hawaii, like Wyoming, because the population less than 1 million, they might have only one electoral vote. So from California to Alaska to Wyoming, a huge difference. Then came what we call swing states. Of course, we're talking about four big. The four biggest one, of course, California, Texas, Florida, and New York. And California and New York almost always go Democratic Party. Texas and Florida in recent years all go to Republican. So you have these four bigs. They evenly distribute all these electoral votes. So it's tied about these four states. Democratic Party, Republican Party, they are very much tied. So here come the swing states. Some of these states, they have 10, 15, 6, 20 votes. At the end of the day, who won these states got the whole. So they call it a winner takes all. If you have only one more popular vote, you can get all pie, get all the votes from the state. For this particular election, there's so much at stake. We're talking about American domestic politics will be continue to be in chaos, to be a messy, to be a very nasty situation, because the two parties, they don't speak to one another. They're not in speaking terms. and the whole society, again, so much division. The right, the left, the center right, and everybody are not very sure about where the country is headed. And the government is kind of in dysfunction. The country is not working. The federal government is not working. The state governments are falling apart. And from now on, the government shutdown will become a new normal. Almost every year, there's a possibility that the government has to shut down. Maybe 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months. And how can you see, with this election getting nastier and nastier, you cannot rule out all these possibilities. And the whole global community, everybody's on their nerves. They don't know what to expect or not to expect. The U.S. leadership is in doubt. All these countries, definitely China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, they call it the axis of upheaval. They will take advantage of the United States being no longer a superpower or losing its superpower. They want to live, they want to have their more voice, more say, carry more weight in a global decision making. And the United Nations, funded by the United States and other major powers in New York, the UN is doing nothing because he cannot do anything about it. When you have all these major powers, they are not cooperating, they're all talking each other, no longer talking to each other. How can you expect the United Nations and other international organizations like WHO, like WTO, this is a major organization, keep functioning well? Now there's a mid-sized powers and the global south. This is a new phenomenon. These mid-sized powers believe that this is their chance, like Brazil, like India, like Saudi Arabia, like Indonesia. They believe now is about the time they can come out and say what they want. Not they used to be just listen to the big brothers. So they have their own agenda. And the Ukraine war, the Middle East, Hamas, Israel. So many crises here and there. The American people, even the whole global community becoming tired. They say, well, enough is enough. So they just simply get so frustrated and nobody really coming out to lead. And that's the issue. And of course, U.S. China relations, U.S. Taiwan relations, this is a big issue. We don't have time at here to see how this election is going to have impact on the United States relations with China, with Taiwan. But we can ask questions. We don't have answers today, but we may ask all these legitimate questions. Because the US and China, they're simply so geopolitically interdependently in competition. When people talk about decoupling, US and China is simply impossible. So we talk about de-risking. We don't talk about the ceiling. Ceilings means how the relations keep going up. People this day only talking about floor. How not to have this relationship getting worse. So we need to have a damage control to manage the relationship, not going downward spiral. But nobody's going to see the US-China relationship keep going up. So that's the current issue. Not to mention the trade, we're talking about the terrorists. We talk about tech wars. We talk about this export control, all this high-tech, AI, cloud computing, and this space technology control, export to China or to other, we call the ROC states. So the United States and China in competition, at the same time so interdependent. So are they going to have a new Cold War? Not really. But are they going to have a new cold peace? Yes, possible. So this is how we see that defined this U.S.-China relations and with in the context of this current presidential election. And for Taiwan, certainly the United States is so indispensable, the relationship, so unmistakable and almost irreplaceable. And this year, 2024, marks the 45th anniversary of Taiwan Relations Act. And once again, I don't want to ask dumb questions, but any one of you, where are you in January 1979? Because none of you in this room was there at all, because I was the one joined the Taiwan Foreign Service in January 1979. And 42 years in the government, with Taiwan's diplomatic career, and 79 and April 1979, that's my third month of my public service, joining the government, the foreign ministry. And this year marks the 45th anniversary of this very important piece of law, Taiwan Relations Act. And we see how the relation in those dark hours, the lowest point of Taiwan's foreign relations, moving, of course there are good times and bad, high and low, but we see how it's on the right track, step by step. And when we call the relations cannot be better and closer. And because of the Taiwan Relations Act as a legal framework and a policy basis of the United States toward Taiwan, and also plus the sex assurances in 1982. And both sides enjoyed all these no surprises, mutual trust. So the U.S.-Taiwan relationship should be in good shape, even with whatever result of this election. Biden, Trump, Republican, Democratic Party, I think we don't really have to concern, even worry about this U.S.-Taiwan relations would be affected, one way or another by this election. But both sides have this understanding that there should be no unilateral change of status quo. So how to keep the cross-strait relations, keep U.S.-Taiwan relations, no surprises. And that's the bottom line. Now with the Lai Ching-te government, with whoever is in charge, the bottom line is no surprises. And we don't want to see any unilateral change of status quo. And Beijing, of course, is another story. PRC has its own agenda, that's fine, but we have to stick to what do we believe in, our principles, because our survival has so much to do with U.S.-Taiwan relations. And then security cooperation, continue the arms sales, and all this is coming from Taiwan Relations Act, the commitment, the Taiwan Relations Act. And overwhelmingly bipartisan support in Washington, D.C., and that's the key. That's the key. Taiwan, we enjoy no diplomatic relations with the U.S., but our mission, we call it Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office, TECRO, is one of the 10 biggest foreign missions in Washington, D.C. no diplomatic recognition, but our mission is one of the biggest in Washington. Because of this strong support, we want to earn the support from the administration, and we have earned a lot of bipartisan support on Capitol Hill. So I remember, if you see one of the posters out there, my wife and I have a picture taken with Nancy Pelosi, the then House Speaker. And we were there for a farewell party because I was leaving Washington. And she would, with no RSVP, she would just show up because it's running so heavy schedule. And she would rush into the room and grab me by the arm. And she said, "Oh, Mr. Ambassador, as long as you guys in Taiwan stay free, open, democratic, and economically strong and prosperous, you can always count on our strong bipartisan support." And she left. But such a powerful voice, such a powerful message. So this is how we work so hard and smart to earn their support. Of course, Nancy Pelosi then came to Taiwan 2022, and she's everywhere. She's the most faithful, most supportive, the grandaunt, the ama in Washington, D.C. No doubt about it. So it didn't come from nowhere. We have to work for it, hard and smart. And this is what we have continued to do on Capitol Hill. So as I said, in Capitol Hill, there are 100 U.S. senators, 435 congressmen, so it's a 538. And we in Washington, D.C., our guys, our men and women, our team, our partners, so we work Capitol Hill on a daily basis, day in and day out. You go to Capitol Hill to knock on all 538 doors in Congress, making sure that they answer your door. They let you in. And with 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, you try to make your case. You want to tell your story, how Taiwan deserves your support, and how Taiwan needs your support. So this is our job, our work in Washington, D.C. So no matter Biden or Trump got reelected, we'll continue to do very important work with Congress. Then of course, with our 护国神山, or I said 护国群山, all this high-tech investment and the trade between the two sides, we should be in good shape. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, we are pushing for a kind of a free trade agreement and avoidance of double taxation between the U.S. and Taiwan. So that should be very important for our future investment, trade, and the engagement with whoever in the White House 4 months from now. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. With the U.S. presidential election every 4 years, I've been covering the U.S. elections since 1979, when I first joined the service as a junior officer. That's the year Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan were running. So every 4 years, 8 years, I had the pleasure of witness all this development, the process, all these ups and downs, good times and bad, U.S. relations. But I think Taiwan is in a very unique position. We don't want to take sides. We don't want to bet. If we have to bet who is the winner, we bet on both sides. Whoever wins, we want to see Taiwan also wins. So this is our belief. So we don't take sides. And our government has been very cautious not to speak out publicly our preference. And now people talking about Biden might be better for Taiwan. He's more in strategic clarity. They say, no, Trump should be better, even this strategic ambiguity. But because he's a transactional guy, for him everything is negotiable. So as long as we have something to negotiate with Trump, why not? They say, well, that's kind of risky. If he can negotiate some deal with Taiwan, he certainly can negotiate deals with Beijing. And who knows, at some point of time, maybe Taiwan will get screwed up. So we, as a national leader, as a top leader, you don't take risks. You want to play safe, but at the same time, you don't just sit idle, doing nothing. With a very calm, cool eyes, watching, following the development, then doing your homework. So whoever wins the election on November 5th, we have already our action book, action plan to deal with the next U.S. administration. So at this point, we want to stay robust, we stay confident, and Taiwan remains a key part, a pivotal role in this free and open Indo-Pacific. So my conclusion, giving this a very important election for the U.S., for the world, for Taiwan, I think I'll give you 4 R's that making Taiwan-U.S. relations, whoever the winner, we should be just okay. The 4 R's are reliable, robust, resilient, and rock solid. So for that, thank you for your attention, and hope you find this presentation, this observation useful and helpful. Again, I don't have answers to all the questions, but this is the elections of the United States, but it means so much for the world, not to mention for Taiwan. So this is background observation. Hope you find it useful. And with that, I finish my presentation, and I welcome any questions you may have. 谢谢。
Hey sir, good afternoon. I'm Yan Chen from the National Defense University. I got one question for you. How do you see the election in the end of the year? In the end of this year, no matter which campaign win the election, how do you see the trilateral relation will be changed between the U.S., Taiwan, and PRC, and how it also changed the Indo-Pacific strategy? Thank you.
I have 2 questions, one for Democrat, one for the Republican. For the Democrat, we've seen that Mr. Biden has been questioned given his age. So if he is elected, someone says Ms. Kamala Harris will have a, let's say, relatively higher possibility to be the president if something happened. So what is the overall impression of Kamala Harris in United States politics, people? So next question for Republicans, I would like to ask that how is the relation between Donald Trump and the Republicans right now? Do they enjoy a, let's say, good cooperation or not? Thank you.
So if I may ask, I'll answer the second question first. About Kamala Harris, if she is a sure ticket, again, nobody knows, because as I said earlier, even among Democratic voters, they have big question mark about the lady because of her past record, because of her being even more liberal than Mr. Biden, and the value system she has. And so again, her minority status, being an Indian descendant and also as a black woman, might help her, but on the other side of the coin, that might be a minus. So that's about how the people, the observers, the U.S. commentators, they make. So on Democratic side, that's a lot of risky. They believe it's riskier than Biden. If Biden stays on, people may, but if Kamala Harris takes over, that would be a different story. So if the people in the U.S. really believe in Kamala Harris, I think we want to make some reservation. And for Republican Party, Mr. Trump, he's an anti-establishment. So even the Republican Party establishment is not his favorite, because Mr. Trump, he's not only to change the Republican Party, he wants to own the Republican Party. He wants to take over the Republican Party. So the different scenarios. So many of the Republican, the moderate, centrist people, they are run away from the Republican Party simply because Mr. Trump. They don't want to have anything to do with Mr. Trump. So that's their only internal crisis. So again, it's a lot of question marks, both Republican and Democratic. And about U.S., China, Taiwan, okay, throughout the decades, from our recent memory, there's always this high love-hate complex. Love-hate, just like prostrate. Because this relationship is so uneasy, even too close for comfort. So you have to be very careful. You don't want to take anything for granted, this relationship. So Mr. Trump, when he was in office, 2016 to 2020, he was one to launch the trade war and make Beijing so upset, and he couldn't do much about it. And they believe when Biden coming in, situation might be improved. So they want to bet their money on Mr. Biden. And then saw the Biden administration doing even more tougher than Mr. Trump in terms of tariffs, in terms of export control, in terms of containment. Because Mr. Biden, on his watch, he bring together all the allies, like-minded countries, the Quad, Five Eyes, U.S., UK, Australia, and U.S., Japan, U.S., Korea, U.S., Philippines, U.S., Vietnam, all coming together. They don't call it containment. They call it co-engagement. Contain and engage, meaning that China is rising. That's the fact. That's the reality. But we, like-minded countries, democratic, like-minded countries, we should stick together. And we don't want to see China behave more aggressive, more assertively, and challenging the U.S. leadership. So the United States could not do it alone, but under Mr. Biden, if I cannot do it alone, I want all my friends, brothers and friends together. So that's the mindset. So U.S. China would remain very tense, but they still continue to engage one another. But this is what I earlier mentioned about. You have no reason to be optimistic about the ceiling, because there will be the ceiling. They have to worry about the floor. They won't get any worse, this relationship, and to have this relationship going out of control, that even the United States will suffer from that. So they have to be very careful to manage. So they now more and more use the word manage. And this is where we are. But for U.S. and Taiwan, I am cautiously optimistic. But once again, when I first arrived at Washington, D.C. as Taiwan's representative, Mr. Trump just got elected. But in 2 months' time, soon after he got elected, we got that famous phone call, hooked up. So the first time in 60 years, Tsai Ing-wen, I mean the leader, and Mr. Trump, the new president, was on the phone for the first time in 60 years. People got so surprised, but well, there's a lot of story behind that. But it means that as long as you work hard, anything could happen. Anything is possible. But of course, you don't just sit there waiting for the phone call the phone to ring. You try to bring that about, make that happen. So it's about being tenacious, being determined, being creative, being hardworking, and keep optimistic. Yes, any other questions? Yes.
I'd like to ask, as you have mentioned, that Donald Trump is an isolationist. So if Donald Trump successfully gets the seat of the president, will it really affect on a global scale in the United Nations? Since we do know that the world now is split into communist and democratic parties, two parties. And if America, such a strong country, becomes an isolationist and really don't give to the world, will it really decrease the power, or will it shrink the ability for the Democratic Party to talk on international scale or international stage?
I think that's more than a question. That's already, you have to answer your own question. Because the people are so concerned about if Mr. Trump comes back. Being an extreme isolationist, you don't really have, you just do the best you can on your own. You don't want to count on Mr. Trump to do anything for you. Unless you do something for him first, then he will pay back, he'll give back. So this is, we're talking about a very unique, even a very strange leader. But his presence becoming, when he first ran for president in 2015, I was in Italy as Taiwan's representative. And I was there with the local American community. And most of the people believe this guy is unreal. He just come out to rock the boat. Just a businessman. I try to have some fun. I'm so unreal. Then he joined the primaries, the caucuses, and he defeated all other opponents. And he won the nomination. Still, many people in Europe still believe he is surreal. From unreal to surreal. Then he's running against Hillary Clinton. Still, most of the people believe Hillary stands a good chance to win. And he beat her, and he became so real. The rest is history. So never count him out, because he's coming back. The rematch is real. And he's coming back and win the election. It could be very real. So you have to prepare for the result, and you have to do your homework to see if he wins, how are you going to handle the relationship. And this is in everybody's mind, in every government's mind, every country's mind. So especially after the TV debate last week, I think most of the country have the idea what to do next. So they are busy scratching, busy drawing, busy writing. Now, now everybody have plan B. They just put away plan A, it's a plan B, the Trump coming back. But again, right now it's until a week ago, it's still a toss-up. There are 50-50 chance each side. Just 1%, 2% difference. Now you see the gap getting bigger and bigger. So you have to prepare for his coming back for real. So if you don't buy more weapons from the U.S. and if you don't spend more money on your defense, and how we in Congress, how we in the administration to make case for you, just like in Japan, I said, in Japan and Korea. In Japan, there are 50,000 American troops. In Korea, 30,000. The United States has been paying for that alone. Now, Mr. Trump said, if you don't pay for my troops there, I pull them out. He believed, he firmly believed, he's speaking the truth. Now everybody's, in the beginning, they are not very sure. Now, if Mr. Trump makes a comeback, they'll be very sure. So the NATO countries, now they are increasing their defense budget. And Japan, Prime Minister Kishida already announced Japan going to reach 3% of GDP until 2030. So you have to make your commitment and to convince Mr. Trump that we are all real, we are friends, we are allies, we are going to share the burden. So this is the challenge. So when Mr. Trump is elected, his friends, the United States, friends, enemies, rivals, partners, everybody have to look out. Everybody has to be very careful.
Thank you, Mr. Gao. And I want to ask, last week TV debates, we can see the Trump and Biden, they have talked about the Middle East conflict between Hamas and Israel. But compared with this, Taiwan, like party or government is seldom discussing about this event. I want to ask, is this because Taiwan want to be neutral in the in this development policy, or just have another consideration?
I think I said when we have to be unbiased, we have to be neutral about this election. Because this is not our election, this is the United States. So the decision has to be made by the American people. The decision has to be made by the American voters. So in terms of this presidential election, we have to be very careful. Once again, stay neutral, taking no sides, betting, to not bet on either one of the candidates. But in terms of foreign policy, certainly we have our own policy. We have our priorities. And when, at the end of the day, Taiwan has to be responsible for your own security, for your own safety, for your own prosperity. Nobody could make the decision for you. So you have to see where's the best for Taiwan, where are the pros and cons, where's the pluses and minuses when we make a decision. Whoever wins the election in November 5th is totally Taiwan's own responsibility to go from there. So you cannot ask Washington, you cannot ask Tokyo, you cannot ask Beijing, how should we do? Where do we go from here? You have to be your own decision maker. So I think this is not really a tough question to answer. But this election is, because I said, so much at stake. So we have to we have to watch very carefully, but at the same time, calm and steady, and don't get boggled into this one. So this one, as I said, we should be in good shape. I stay always optimistic, and in our business, as a foreign service officer, you have always stayed optimistic. Otherwise, you go nowhere. You cannot get anything done. And this is something I like to share with our young friends, because as you are some of the best and the brightest students, young leaders in Taiwan. And you have so much ahead. So as a face of Taiwan, as a voice of Taiwan, as the pride of Taiwan, and this is hopefully, you can find this kind of exercise vital and important and of big help. And for that, I thank you very much for your attention. 谢谢。